Yo, what's going on, man? Jason Capital here, America's Honest Dating Coach. And welcome back to day 14, module 4 of Power Influence. So, we have officially dominated the three weapons of positioning, right? We had authority, we had higher status, and we had celebrity, right? And we crushed them all, right? So now we understand that all those tools we just talked about they're all pre-influence tools. They're all about positioning yourself before you even begin the communication, right? Before you even talk to the person, text the person, send out the invite, the offer, the sales pitch, doesn't matter. They're all about positioning yourself at the highest level. So now all these 9 agents of influence that we're going to talk about now through the rest of this training over the next 28 days, all those agents that you're using, now they're coming from this high authority, this high celebrity, this higher status person, this person who's positioned themselves higher. So now every word you say, our next one is perceived value. That's the first agent of influence we're going to be talking about here. When you use perceived value, when you use perceived value from this level of positioning, now it's like, just think of it as worth 100, right? And if you hadn't done any positioning and you use the same sentence, right? You use the same tool, the same perceived value tool, it's worth 3, maybe. I'm being nice right now, okay? But all the work we just did is just about positioning yourself higher. So literally, you just hit with fucking impact, right? You're not a BB gun, you're an AK. That's the difference, okay? So now we're gonna talk about, you position yourself this high, now it's about, and I just wanna tell you right now, if you were lazy, okay, I know you're not, but if you were lazy, you could hypothetically stop the course right now. Okay, you wouldn't even have to learn anything else about power influence if you just knew about positioning. Because if you position yourself that highly, people are typically just gonna comply, right? They're gonna take on your ideas. They're gonna say yes. They're gonna do what you want. Okay, simply because you position yourself higher than them. But I know that's not your style, right? I know that's not your style. I know that's not anyone's style in here, right? We're gonna master all this shit. So let's do it. All right, so what is perceived value? Okay, what is perceived value versus actual value? Okay, so we have perceived value and we have actual value. There are 2 types of value. Most people don't know this. So there's actual value, okay? There's actual value. For instance, a rock, okay? If I take a rock, it has a certain amount of value, objectively speaking. Okay, I can use it as a tool to sharpen like a weapon, right? I can throw it through a glass window, right? I could chuck it at, I don't know, Hillary Clinton's prefrontal cortex and knock her out. I can do a lot of things with this rock. It has a certain level of value, okay? But it's not that valuable. However, when I wrap it in perceived value, I can make it seem more valuable and more valuable and more valuable. And all of a sudden, if I wanted to, I can make it so valuable that I could call it the pet rock. And I could make hundreds of millions of dollars selling a rock, okay? And that's actually what they did with the pet rock, right? So it's a rock, now it's a pet rock, $14.99, whatever, take it home. Millions and millions and millions sold, right? So we have actual value of a rock, and then we have the perceived value, all the marketing they did for it to make it seem more valuable. Okay, so the actual value was like here, that's a rock, right? But now we wrap it in perceived value. We do all these things to it. I'm going to tell you all the different techniques to increase the perceived value of it as we go forward here. But all of a sudden, now it's worth that much, okay? Oops. So all we've done is wrap it in perceived value, and at that point, it's almost impossible for someone to look at that thing and just see its actual value anymore, okay? So once you've increased perceived value of something, once you've taken a thing and now you've given it all kinds of perceived value, it's almost impossible for the human brain to look back at that thing and only see it for its actual value. Okay, we only see it for its perceived value, right? Because they must perceive it, and when they do, they project all those stories onto the actual value, which positively or negatively affect that thing's value. Does that make sense, everybody? They're projecting stories onto the rock that either make it more valuable or less valuable, depending on the stories that they've heard about it. That's it. Okay, and again, if you are aware of all these factors, you can come obviously much closer to rationally appraising the value of something because you get this, but most people can't and most people won't. We are literally a species surviving on perceived value. So what billion-dollar companies, million-dollar entrepreneurs, and elite politicians all do is they take anything and they wrap it and they dress it in so many different agents of influence synergistically and engagingly that its perceived value goes nuts and people value it so damn highly and become far more attracted and emotionally invested and interested in it. Great example, the pet rock. Okay, the pet rock. That is it. I can't think of a better example than that. It's a fucking rock. Just a rock. Right? I could go down to the beach. I could have tons of rocks. Okay? Rock City. There's rocks everywhere. Okay? There's rocks everywhere. They're not valuable. There's a high supply. There's a low demand. But we wrap it in a story about every kid needs a pet rock. Right? Every kid has a pet dog, but they also need a pet rock. It's a friend. It's something you take care of. It's something you take with you. It's there when your friends aren't. We tell them all these stories about it, and all of a sudden it becomes valuable. It goes from being free down by the beach to $14.99 at Target, Walmart. Go now. Buy now, right? Let's look at Yeezy shoes, right? Kanye West has these shoes. They were selling for, does anyone know how much? If you say it, anyone know how much they're going for? Yeezy shoes? What's the price tag? I think they were, I don't know, several $100s. They're on eBay now. I checked, $20,000. $20,000 for a pair of Kanye West shoes. I wonder how much Jay-Z shoes would go for. $200 million, comparatively speaking. $20,000 for a pair of shoes. How much perceived value do those shoes have? Fuck tons. How much actual value do they have? Very little, right? Very little. Jordans, good shoes, good basketball shoes, decent, right? Actual value, decent. Perceived value, much, much higher. Okay, much, much higher. And the reason for that is they are using all the different agents of influence that we're going to talk about in Module 5 and 6 and 7, all the way down to increase the thing's perceived value. And you increase the perceived value, now you can charge more. And people will pay more. Okay? People will pay more. So it's a really interesting thing. Okay? And what we do is we call it, if you want to write this phrase down, we call it romancing the stone. Okay? Romancing the stone. And I love the fact that and that's a phrase that we've used in marketing for decades, okay? But there is something called the pet rock, and the phrase is called romancing the stone. It's just wonderful. The irony is fantastic, okay? All we're doing is we're taking a fucking stone and we're wrapping it in so many stories about how exclusive it is, about how it's hard to get, about how so many people want it, about how there's a limited supply, okay? About how Robert Downey Jr. and George Clooney both bought them for their kids. We wrap it in all these different stories and triggers and weapons of influence so the thing's perceived value rises and rises and rises. We tell this romantic, idealistic story about the thing and its value skyrockets. Okay? Status is worth one thing to a customer, but then when I tell them my hero story and all the things it did for me and it changed my life and it took me from rags to riches, which is all true, but once you hear that story and bottle girls are stealing my ID now just because of status, when I couldn't even get people to go out with me to a bar, a couple of years ago, you're like, now I've romanced the stone. I've romanced the status. Now you want it. Now it's worth a lot more. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, that's all we're doing with perceived value. Now, there's a second part to this module that I'm going to kind of combine at the same time. So we have perceived value on one side, okay, and we have incentive on the other side. Okay, perceived value and incentive. What is incentive? Okay. Incentive is a bonus component to the offer, to the invitation. Okay, to the offer, to the invitation. Here's how I want you to think about incentive. Okay, most people, when they're weighing a decision, Whether it was an invitation you sent them, hey, come out Friday night, whether it's a job opportunity, whether it's, should I buy this guy's product, should I sign with a different real estate agent, whatever it is. Typically what's going on here, I don't know if that's right, we're gonna call this a scale, okay? Now, let's say this is you on this side of your invitation or whatever, and this is the enemy. This is the other side. This is yes, this is no. You want to obviously tip the scales in your favor to get the yes. Does it make sense to everybody? Good. So when you increase the perceived value of the thing, you're increasing their desire for it, right? Value and desire are very closely related. And you increase the perceived value, you're gonna tip it in your favor more, okay? Now maybe there's an associated risk with saying yes to you, or there's always rewards and there's risks to both sides of it. But maybe the perceived value doesn't tip the scales quite enough in your favor. Maybe you get them almost to say yes, but they haven't yet. How do you tip the scales completely in your favor so you get the yes? You do it with incentive, okay? Incentive is a bonus component to the offer or invitation, and it is designed to tip the scales emotionally in your favor. Imagine a friend invites you out. Go out Friday night, okay? You're kind of interested, they're going to a cool place, it might be fun, it might not, you're not really sure if you want to go. But then he mentions that hot girl that you've been flirting with, kind of on and off with, but you haven't hooked up with yet, is gonna be there. Are you gonna go to this place Friday night now? Fuck yeah, of course you're gonna go. Before it was kind of good. You know about the perceived value of the place and the friends, and it might be fun. And again, you're not sitting there consciously weighing the perceived value, your subconscious does this for you. But you're not really sure. You could go, you could stay at home, you got work to do, there's both sides to it. But then he mentions this bonus incentive that hot girl is gonna be there, and he tips the scales in his favor, and now you have to go, okay? Now, are you just mindlessly complying with authority? No. You're weighing these things out, but he, as a good marketer, a good salesman, a good persuader, you should be giving incentives to people. He's doing the right thing. Right? If he wants you to come out, he should be telling you about the incentive because it's going to get him to do what you want. It's going to get you to do what he wants, excuse me. Okay? Or imagine when you see an infomercial, right? You can buy a slap chop, but if you order in the next 20 minutes, we'll throw in a second one free, right? It's a bonus incentive. So get the slap chop, it's dope, right? You'll be chopping your stress away, or whatever, chopping your stress away. Get the slap chop. But then they say, so they know that certain people, so what they've done in studies with infomercials is they find that if the infomercial is 20 minutes long, they get a certain amount of buyers who buy in the first 7 minutes. Okay, a certain amount of buyers. And then there's a section, let's say a third of them buy in the first 7 minutes. Another third just totally leaves because they're like, this isn't for me. But then there's this middle third of people who are watching the infomercial and they kind of want the slap chop. I want to slap my troubles away, right? That sounds cool. But they don't buy. They're not sure. They're still weighing this thing out, okay? So then the next 7 minutes, what infomercials I figured out to do is we add an incentive after incentive after incentive in that middle segment, and all those people start buying and calling and buying and calling and buying and calling. All they did was add incentive. They weren't like, oh, I need to find a better argument to talk this person into it. I got to show them more facts. No, people don't like facts. They don't want to hear another argument. Just incentivize them even more, and they'll do it. AKA, order the next 10 minutes and you'll get a second one free. Now, who needs 2 slap chops? As far as I can tell, people don't even use the first one that they order. But you throw in a second one, get their greed glands firing, and boom, they start buying. Okay, that's what incentive does. It's called a free gift with purchase in marketing. That's what we call that, right? So for instance, if I worked at a nightclub and I knew, first of all, nightclubs are terrible at marketing to clients. I don't know why they don't follow up and try and get people to come back. They don't do anything like that. But if I was, sometimes what they'll do is they'll comp you a bottle, right? They comp you. Come in, you buy 2 bottles, we'll throw in a third one for free. Free gift with purchase, incentive. I didn't know if I want to go 2 bottles, how much money, who's paying, how are we splitting it? Shit, we get a 3rd bottle free. All right, fuck it, let's go. Okay? Tips the scales emotionally in your favor. Am I mad at the club that they controlled my behavior? No, they threw in the incentive. I'm cool with it. It's good for me, it's good for them, it's good for everybody, okay? So why does it work like this? Okay, well, we are all creatures of self-interest. In any given circumstance, we quickly assess the risks and the associated rewards and respond in a way that seems to best serve us. The higher their perceived value, the higher the perceived reward. Higher perceived value, higher perceived reward. My favorite quotes about perceived value and incentive, okay? You eat their bread, you sing their song. All right? You eat their bread, you sing their song. You eat their bread, you sing their song. This is incentive. That's what it is, right? If you work for a boss, right, maybe you don't like him, maybe you do, whatever it is. If he's the one paying you, aka incentive, and someone tries to badmouth him, you probably won't take part in it, right? You're going to sing his song because he's still paying you. You eat his bread, you sing his song, okay? Charlie Munger, also talking about incentive, said, I think I've been in the top 5% of my age cohort all my life in understanding the power of incentives. In all my life, I've underestimated the power of incentives, okay? For those who don't know, Warren Buffett, smart guy he learns from most, Charlie Munger. That's who said this. So if you think Warren Buffett is smart, understand Charlie Munger is even smarter. Also a billionaire. He also said, and never a year passes that I don't get some surprise that pushes my limit a little farther. What he means by that is my limit of how little I understand how powerful incentive is. He's like 93 now. He's been studying human psychology for like 70 years. And he still continues to underestimate the power of incentive to control and influence behavior. Powerful, powerful shit. So in the next section, we're going to talk about how to actually increase the perceived value of something and how to create an incentive that gets people to do what you want, right? In a powerful win-win kind of way. So I'll see you in the next video in just a second.